Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and do the last problem. Well, I say last because this is the last question the student had from section 4.1. Obviously, if you have more questions, don't hesitate to let me know. But right now, we have the last problem here, which is number 69. So this is problem number 69. And once again, the question is for us to find the inverse of this function. So in this case, our function f of x is given to be 1 over x minus 3. So again, we have a rational function here. So this one should be very similar to the last problem we did, I believe number 68, because that one also was a fraction involved rational function. Also notice that here, this function is going to be defined for every number, every value of x except 3, because if you put 3 in place of x, obviously 3 minus 3 becomes 0. So, and as you know, you can't divide by 0. So what we have to say here in this case for this function, and I do say it in the book, of course, that this function only makes sense when x is not 3. Because if x were to be 3, of course, you'll be dividing by 0, and that doesn't make sense. Which is what we also call domain of the function, right? So domain of this function will be everything, all real numbers except 3. Because that's the only number that doesn't make this make sense. Anyway, so for a step again, don't forget the first step to find the inverse. Change f of x to y. This is a step 1. A step 2, interchange x and y so that y becomes x. And the x down here becomes y. And of course, a step 3 is to solve for y. And don't forget, we have the same issue here. To solve for y means the y has to be upstairs. It cannot be in the denominator. So we're going to have to remove the y. Except we can't just remove the y. We have to remove the entire denominator. So I'm going to write that equation again. And then we'll see how we can remove the denominator. And obviously, to remove any denominator, you just have to multiply it by itself. So we multiply both sides by y minus 3. And so there it is. So now we don't have any more y's downstairs. So now I'm going to rewrite what we have here. And then I'm going to actually have to move it upstairs because I don't have too much room. Let me see if I can adjust the camera here a little bit. Okay, so now we have on the left hand side, you are left with y minus 3 times x. And on the right hand side, you're left with 1 because the y minus 3 is cancelled. Okay, so we did a step 1, we did a step 2, and of course we're still in process of finishing a step 3, which says to solve for y. So right now we are at this stage, and we do have another dilemma here. We have the y again inside the parentheses, and of course, as long as the y sits inside, we cannot solve for it. So we have to remove the parentheses. So we do it by distributive property. So then that will be our next step. Okay, but since I don't have any room here, I'm going to go ahead and erase the step 1 and 2. You already saw those. And then we can finish up a step 3 up here. So from here, I'm going to distribute already. So y times x becomes yx or xy, either way. And then 3 times x becomes 3x. And you still have 1. So now the only term that has a y in it is this term. Since you want to solve for y, you want to isolate this term by itself and move the negative 3x on the right. Don't forget to change the sign as you move it to the right-hand side. And the last step is to remove the x next to the y. Again, opposite of multiplication is division. So we divide both sides by that factor x so we can have the y all by itself. And that should complete the step number 3. Let me write it here. So our final conclusion for step 3 is that y equals 1 plus 3x over x. And there's your y. So you solve for y, okay? And don't forget there is a fourth step, which says, of course, to change f of x to change y to f inverse of x. So that's just renaming y as f inverse or inverse of f, which happened to be 1 plus 3x over x. And of course, don't forget, since you can't divide by 0, you do have to include that x cannot be 0 because division by 0 is undefined. And so there it is. There is your inverse function for this function f of x. Okay, well, I hope these 3 problems help. I'm going to go ahead and upload them right now on Blackboard. So hopefully you'll get a chance to look at them if you need to see them. Okay, thank you. Bye.